Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time on this Sunday night. Hope everybody's having a great evening so far. Happy to have you guys in for another episode. We had a big bounce back at Nissan Stadium earlier this afternoon. Titans getting a huge win over the Cincinnati Bengals, 27-3. Flip the script after getting embarrassed by the Cleveland Browns. They turn around, come back with a big win at home, so you know we're going to break it down tonight. Obviously, we're keeping tabs on what's happening with Sunday Night Football. Kansas City currently up on the Jets 20-12, just a little bit ahead of the 2-minute warning. 2 minutes and 15 to play as they kick off just ahead of the 2-minute warning. Jets getting ready to get the ball back after Mahomes drove down the field. But we have a lot of Titans discussion to get into and looking forward to doing so with you guys. Before we get started, need you all to share the show around wherever the broadcast is streaming to you this evening. I know we're back on Facebook, so Facebook people, happy to have you back in our lives. If you're hanging out on Twitter, please retweet the show, bottom right-hand corner of your screen. Facebook Live, you can share not a public, that's in the bottom left. YouTube and Twitch, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Make sure you've done both of those things. If you have, tell a friend to do the same. We'd always be grateful for that participation. A lot of you guys excited. There's a lot of reasons to be excited if you're a Titans fan, because, I mean, I would argue that that's the most dominant performance that the Tennessee Titans have had through the first 4 games. Dre Wilson says, damn, Buck, and get with the clock emoji. Listen, you guys know how this works, all right? 2-minute warning of Sunday Night Football, Monday Night Football, Thursday Night Football. The schedule is organized. All you got to do is watch the clock. You know I'm going to be here, and we're happy to be back in the swing of things with you. And I know y'all are in a better mood than you were last weekend, because about 7 days ago, I was in, I was thinking that we needed to put out a self-harm watch on many of you based on the behavior. Anyway, we're ready to get rocking and rolling. Let's go ahead and do that. Like the video wherever you're hanging out, and welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time. From the Zen Sports Studios, I'm your host, Buck Rising, and I'm proud, as always, to be presented to you by the aforementioned Zen Sports. Plug in that promo code ATOZTN. That's ATOZTN in the Zen Sports app, and you get unlimited 5% cash back for your first 15 days of betting. ZenSports.com is how you get in on the action. The law offices of Amanda J. Gentry. AmandaJGentry.com is where you go to find out how they can protect your constitutional rights. And of course, True Math Fitness in the Gulch, the best workout in Middle Tennessee, a new way to work out for the best version of you. Go to TrueMathFitness.com. Okay, so 27-3. Derrick Henry passes Earl Campbell for sole possession of second place in the Titans' all-time franchise leading rushers list. It's a dominant performance from top to bottom, offensively, defensively. No gaffes on special teams. You even got a 21-yard return from Mason Kinsey today. You could do no wrong after, 7 days from being removed of doing absolutely nothing right, it felt like, other than the field goal unit. But as you look at the way that the Titans rebounded today, I think it speaks to a couple of things. One, for as doomsday as it all felt 7 days ago, week 1 in New Orleans, basically anytime you lose. And I think a lot of this is exacerbated when your football team struggles to score. Think about the New York Jets, right? We're watching Sunday Night Football, the Jets and the Chiefs. The Jets have such a damn good roster, and they labor on offense so badly. Zach Wilson has been okay tonight, but he's missed a couple of layup throws, probably 2 that would have been pretty routine touchdown passes had they had Aaron Rodgers in the game. So when you can't score points, everything is magnified. And certainly that's been, the story of the Tennessee Titans through, or at least was, through the first 3 weeks. 2 games where they hadn't scored a touchdown. 1, it took overtime for them to beat the Chargers. Today, they still maxed out at 27 points, but they were firing on all cylinders, and it looked like they came out pretty sharp from the start, which does make such a big difference. Because a lot of times when we're talking about Tennessee Titans games, the slow starts are what kill you. The slow starts are the constant talking point, how often they put themselves immediately behind the 8 ball and how their style of play doesn't necessarily lend itself to playing catch-up at least as presently constructed. So as we look at these things, we'll start with your Two Rivers Ford take on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch. What was the most impressive part of the Titans' 27-3 win over the Cincinnati Bengals today? They finally beat the Bengals. Maybe it's just the fact that they beat the Bengals. We can talk about that. Obviously, these two teams have recent history up against one another, and obviously it has gone not in your favor in many of those. But today, you got right. You'll hear from Derrick Henry in just a second, right after I remind you that your Two Rivers Ford take is presented by Two Rivers Ford. Quality American-made Ford vehicles, award-winning customer service. Nobody goes above and beyond for you as the buyer like Two Rivers Ford does. DeAndre Hopkins is a customer. I'm a customer. Coach Dave McGinnis of Titans Radio, Ramon Foster, Dawn Davenport, and so many other millions of Middle Tennesseans who have shopped at Two Rivers Ford over the 40 years of its existence. Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet, powered by Ford, driven by people. So what was the most impressive part of what you saw them do today? Pretty boy, says Stephen King, talking about Pretty Boy Kelly. Yeah, that story seems like it happened a long time ago, even though it was probably, 2 months, maybe a little less, with the fake DeAndre Hopkins number responding to Paul Kaharski with some text about Tim Kelly, who the fake DeAndre Hopkins referred to as Pretty Boy Kelly. Well, you got some Pretty Boy Kelly stuff today. And it felt kind of like they were going to have to fight for it, right? Because the Bengals come out. The first drive looks great. I went back and watched it through once I got home on the television copy just to kind of refresh my memory. And I mean, it really felt like they were going to be in for a long day because they come out, gain of 9 to Jamar Chase. Joe Burrow rushes for a first down and clearly doesn't want to run. But like on the second play when Joe Burrow he's only rushing for a yard. He gets the yard, he slides because he immediately has the ability to convert there. But I'm looking around and saying, oh my God, if Joe Burrow is going to run on them or use his legs on them on a day when he's obviously dealing with a calf strain, and we'll talk more about the calf strain later, then they're going to be in for a day. So they get the first down, they get the third down conversion there. They go gains of 8, 11, 9, 17, and 4. Burrow throws an incompletion on second down, and then they have to take a timeout because honestly, the crowd at Nissan Stadium today was objectively good. You could tell that they were having difficulty communicating out there. You could tell that I think the crowd, even though it's a noon game, it 90 degrees out there. For those of you who were out in the elements and gutting it out, I know that I know at least the payoff of you getting of your team getting a win today probably made it worth it. But it was not an easy environment for a lot of people to go out on the first Sunday of October and sweat it out to maybe watch their football team against a franchise that's had their number in 3 of the last 4 meetings. But today they got the win. And like on that first drive, I was saying, they take the timeout because Burrow's having trouble hearing, the crowd's going crazy, and they make a really weird decision, Zach Taylor and that offensive coaching staff. They call a draw play for Joe Mixon on 3rd and 6 when they've got Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd on that offense. If you can't trust your passing game to get that conversion there, I get what you're trying to do. Maybe catch the defense sagging back a little bit because the obvious thing with those kind of skill position players would be to throw, right? And I think sometimes it's okay to do the obvious thing. But I thought it was a weird decision by the Bengals coaching staff. I thought it was very conservative because they get 3. So it's then 4th and 3. They decide not to go for it. They take the field goal. They take the points early on. And the Titans come back with a drive that's really, really nice, even though it stalls out at the end when Tannehill takes the sack. And I thought it was a bad sack by Tannehill to take, but he did rebound. He did make up for it later in the game. So they go on and conduct a 15-play, 40-yard drive in response. The Tennessee Titans do. 7:48 off the clock. They settle for the field goal. The game is tied in field goals, and then the offense goes crazy, which we'll get to here in just a second. I think that when you talk about the places where they were most impressive today, it's not just the offense because the defense did some pretty great things too. But I don't want to say that the defense had the easier assignment when Joe Burrow was on the other side of things. But I do think that it was a pretty impressive performance all the way around. Here was Derrick Henry talking about the significance today of passing Earl Campbell. We'll talk about Derrick Henry's day here in just a little bit.
I feel like we were hitting on all cylinders, playing complementary football on all three phases. Glad we were able to put drives together. Defense did a great job against the offense, special teams. I feel like it was a great all-around team win. Finally got one on me, so they still up with us a little bit, but we only got one. So.
How do you like the way your guys up front took care of you, made sure that you had the rushing lanes?
Yeah, I don't even want to give credit. Credit goes to those guys, man. The resiliency they showed coming up last week, and how we performed as a team. Those guys really took it to heart and went out there and played a hell of a game and made my job a lot easier. So give those guys all the credit and they deserve it.
So Derrick Henry talking about the rebound that the offensive line had today, and listen, it wasn't perfect, but it was as dominant a performance as they've had this year. There's no question about that. The offensive line still gave up 3 sacks. I mentioned that the first one I thought was a pretty bad error on Tannehill, just because the pressure's coming. You're going to struggle to hold up in that obvious situation, and the ball's got to come out faster. Even if it's an incompletion, you can't potentially cost. Nick Folk made the 53-yard field goal after the fact, but you can't potentially knock yourself out of field goal range. And it was kind of vibes after the first drive of, they're kind of doing the thing again, where they get into the red zone like they did at the end of the first half against Cleveland, and they have all these miscues, and they fall apart, and Andre Dillard gives up a sack, and Ryan Tannehill's out of field goal range, and oh my God, they don't have a timeout, so the time expires. And you go into half without 3 even, as opposed to even taking a shot at the end zone. They didn't have time. Tannehill did throw an interception today. It was a weird interception on second down. It was it's one of the Tannehill throws that, like, Mahomes made one earlier in the game today too. Oddly enough, one of these interceptions where it was just an error on the amount of touch that he put on the ball, and it kind of sailed short on him. But this was a very frustrating interception that Ryan Tannehill threw later in the game. Game was out of hand. Bengals didn't really have the ability to come back, but that was really the only glaring error that they had on the day, because for the most part, so they stall out on their first 2 drives. They had the double pass opportunity to DeAndre Hopkins, and I'll give you a funny note on that from DeAndre Hopkins here in just a second, right after I remind you that the Primetime Show is presented by TrueMath Fitness in the Gulch. Go to TrueMathFitness.com. Your first workout is free. As a Middle Tennessee resident, TrueMath Fitness is the best place to go. I love it. They helped me lose 58 pounds. My goal was to obviously lose some weight, but to improve my physical fitness as well. I love the boot camp style classes. They're only about 40 minutes. You can get in morning, afternoon, or evening. TrueMath's schedule is always awesome. And if you just want to sign up for a membership to use their conveniently located facility in downtown Nashville in the Gulch, you can do that too. TrueMathFitness.com, where your first workout is free. So DeAndre Hopkins on that double pass play that they had. So ball gets handed to Derrick. Derrick passes it back to Tannehill. Tannehill has a wide open DeAndre Hopkins down the field. He's got his man beat. He's got him. And you can tell that it's the first time that Hopkins has played in the glaring sun that is Nissan Stadium for a noon kickoff. Because in talking to DeAndre Hopkins, we were in the locker room. This was after Ryan Tannehill. By then, most of it had cleared out, and Hopkins was the only one left. And Teron Davenport was walking with him as he was walking out of the building. And I think TD brought it up to him, asking, "Hey, did you lose that one in the sun?" Because I think Teron saw him stumble. We all saw him stumble, but Teron recognized, because TD played wide receiver in college, and it's why I think he lends particularly good. We all do different things, but Teron has a really good insight, having played football at least a collegiate level, and at the wide receiver position, recognized that when Hopkins stumbled, it was because he was looking for the ball and lost it in the sun, lost his footing as a result. Hopkins had not played in that kind of glaring sunlight at Nissan Stadium, which you all experienced today. Lost the ball, missed an opportunity. Could tell that he was frustrated by it. He made up for it later in the game. So then you have 3 straight touchdown drives. And this was the thing that was the most impressive to me today. It was Derrick Henry. the passing game was working well. It allowed Derrick Henry to make some plays. It freed things up for Derrick Henry. I thought Tim Kelly was also in his bag as far as the flow that he was able to get into. They were getting sufficient enough blocking. They were able to get into drives. They were able to stack plays as a result, and it looked like a functional NFL offense. Dre Wilson says it accurately. It looked like vintage Derrick Henry, where they're running the King Cat and he's throwing a 2-yard jump pass to Josh Wiley. It's not Corey Davis this time, but it's going to Josh Wiley, the rookie tight end. By the way, he got ruled out with an ankle injury. Worth monitoring, because I thought he had some good snaps today. Not just obviously the catching the touchdown pass, but he had some good block. Him and Chig had some nice blocks in there, which has been a pretty obvious weakness in the Titans' tight end, multiple tight end sets. Why Wesco gets so much time is because he's their best blocker. It's the Jeff Swaim conundrum. Either way, we're not going to get bogged down by that. But it was a vintage Derrick Henry performance. And you hadn't seen one for a while. Not one without fumbles, right? Because he had some nice games last year, but they were bogged down by the turnover. Some of the fumbles he was able to recover, but he did lose a fair amount down the stretch and in critical games last year. In this game, Derrick Henry rattled off his longest rush of the year, 29 yards, made a couple of guys miss, had a stiff arm in the middle of that, took it out on the Bengals. That was the second of the 3 touchdowns that they scored in the second quarter. 3 touchdowns in the second quarter. I saw Lucas Panzica, who's on the radio show with me on 104.5 The Zone from 10 to 1 every day. Lucas tweeted a stat that I assume he had either looked up or heard in the Titans radio booth today, that the Titans had not scored 3 touchdowns in a single quarter since the 2021 regular season finale against the Houston Texans. It had been that long, that shootout against Deshaun Watson for the AFC South, that Sam Sloman, the thicker, decided. 3 touchdowns in a game for the first time in 2 seasons, right? And so they got a vintage Derrick Henry performance. The defense was up to par. They did not allow explosive plays. The most impressive part was for sure Derrick. And it was fun to talk to Jeff Simmons about it today, because Jeff spoke to just how impressive a player it is and how much it further motivates them as a team to see not just the work that Derrick puts in, but how often he is able to execute at the highest level when they just provide him with the slightest bit of help.
Counts, running them hills, it all pays off, and I just respect him just because how hard he working. Just to see him in it each day, man, it just, it's unbelievable to see a guy like that going into these, especially, we always hear about the running back market, this and that, but that guy, man, he keep his head down and keep working, and it's paying off for him. So
I mean, he's different that way, though. You talk about these running backs.
Yeah, man. And like I said, man, he deserved whatever come for him, coming for him. So like I said, he really came and explained it at the end of the day, because he's an unbelievable player, and the way he just carry himself, throughout the day or throughout the whatever it may be when he at work. Like I said, he's a hell of a player, and he worked like this.
So that is Jeff Simmons talking about the Derrick Henry performance today and how much respect he has for his friend and teammate, Derrick Henry. A to Z Sports Primetime is presented by the law offices of Amanda J. Gentry. Wherever justice demands, Amanda J. and her team have you covered. They are the best in the business when it comes to protecting your constitutional rights. They will do so passionately. They will do so fiercely. In particular, your constitutional right to be a father to your child. Parental rights is something that Amanda and her team take very seriously. If you or someone you know are in a situation that require their services, if you need education on what it is that you need protecting when it comes to your constitutional rights. Not all of us are constitutional lawyers. AmandaJGentry.com is where you go to find out more information about how they can assist you today. Skerblerd on YouTube says Jeff's truck is sick. Yeah, it's pretty nasty. I saw him put up a couple of Instagram stories about, I guess he got a custom detailed, but it's pretty sick whip. MB says it seems as though the offense needs to lay an egg the previous week for them to show up the current week. It is, they do this so often, and I sympathize with you guys more on days when they look this kind of competent than I do on days when they are, when they lose a close game. Or, I mean, tough to not understand why many of you went into freak out mode last week, because 94 yards of offense in an NFL game is disgusting. For all the reasons that we talked about. No reason to relitigate that. But today, it's just, maybe this is the case for all sports, right? Where you go through so many tough losses, so many difficult times, so many, almost there plays like the DeAndre Hopkins double pass missed opportunity that they had on the first drive today. Where you see so many of those things literally go right through your hands. And then on a day where they're clicking and they hit the screen pass to Tajay Spears, where he was probably dead to rights, but made a really, really nice move to evade pressure on second down, or to evade the defenders on second down, get him a sizable gain, set Derrick Henry up. Just little things like that aren't little, that are functional, that are critical to sustaining drives, to sustaining offense, and for you to play complementary football, the way that the coaching staff talks about all the time. But, the most impressive part of today was Derrick Henry. Yes, you beat the Bengals. Yes, it's the first time that you've beaten Joe Burrow. Yes, it's the first time that you've beaten Zach Taylor. And those things, do matter. But more than half the roster wasn't a part of that 2021 Bengals playoff game. So for all the ones who were, Jeff obviously takes it personally. Derek obviously takes it personally. Guys who have been here and who were a part of that game understand the same thing that you understand, which is that hurt in 2021 when you got bounced as the divisional host and with the easiest path to the AFC Championship game that you've had in recent memory, and it all went right through your hands, or right out of your hands into the hands of a defender, to the tune of 3 interceptions. So to beat the Bengals obviously provides you some satisfaction, but it's more about the fact that they found their rhythm on offense, that we know what they are capable of, and that at least for Tim Kelly, when they can when they're not playing Myles Garrett, they can find ways to get through with this current group of offensive linemen that I think is feasible for the time being. Now, they'll have an interesting decision. We talked a little bit, for those of you who tuned into the podcast on Friday, we talked a little bit about the NPF news, where the NFL has adapted their gambling policy, and Nicholas Petit-Frere will be eligible to return and participate in games and practices with the team tomorrow. He will be eligible after missing 4 games to start the season with a suspension. Kyle Phillips is also expected to start practicing again. So to start to get bodies back in the wide receiver core, with Treylon Burks missing some time, that would also play to your benefit. They've got a divisional game coming up this next Sunday at Indianapolis, and the Colts are frisky. They did lose today to the Rams, but the division is very, very close. The Texans look competent. The Jags rolled the Falcons, and are much more comfortable playing on a different continent, it would seem, than they are in the United States of America. But that's besides the point. This is going to be a competitive division, even if you don't think it's a good division. It's going to be a competitive division to show that you have some juice to keep you competitive. To steal Zach Bingham's words, some juice to keep yourself competitive was essential for everybody. You had to get buy-in from your team. You have to get buy-in from your fan base. Nissan Stadium, I thought, responded very well today to the production, to the ass kicking that was. The Cincinnati Bengals got embarrassed the same way that you got embarrassed last week at Cleveland. It feels good to do that to somebody else, I assume. It feels good to be on the right side of a 27-3 ass kicking, the way that you were today. I'm certain, given the way that you guys reacted last week. Somebody's making cracks about Ty Kendrick says, I look 6 months younger each show. Well, I did shave entirely too close. And then somebody made a comment. It's definitely the Botox. It's 100% the Botox. That means it's working. We love to see it. Anyway, so hopefully we continue to Benjamin Button until I'm just a baby doing this show. That'll be the way that that'll be the way that the primetime show ends. Me as a Benjamin Button figure, as an old baby, just sitting here in the chair yelling about Titans left tackle issues. God help us. It's a very weird visual. Anyway, Let's keep it moving on the primetime show. Halftime of Sunday Night Football. Chiefs leading the Jets. Normally we would do who you got segment here, but it does, I think, it's worth discussing more about the Titans game since we're here. The question for you on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch is this: if you would like to get in, who was the most improved player that you saw in the Titans game today? Let me know in the comment section. We'll discuss at length together. I'll remind you that if you're not betting football in the Zen Sports app, you absolutely should be, because there is no better offer than unlimited 5% cash back for your first 15 days of wagering when you plug in the promo code ATOZTN. That's A2ZTN in the Zen Sports app. That will unlock that cash back bonus. There's no point in wasting money at other sports books when Zen Sports has the best offer for you. Terms and conditions do apply. Must be 21 or older in Tennessee to bet. Gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line, 1-800-889-9789. Download the Zen Sports app today. Who is the most improved player in today's game? Karen O'Keefe says Kevin Byard. I don't think Kevin Byard's had a bad game. I don't think Kevin Byard had his best game. Last week, I don't think anybody had their best. When you lose that way, nobody had a good game, right? But I didn't think that KB played overwhelmingly poorly against the Browns, but he did have a nice game today. Absolutely. CC27 on YouTube says Dillard 100%. Nasir, I assume is how we're pronouncing that, says Fulton. No explosive plays today. Just taking a look at the Bengals. And obviously, listen, Joe Burrow has been struggling with stuff down the field all year long. He can't move back there. But you capitalized, right? Deshaun Watson wasn't making throws like that until he played the Tennessee Titans. So it was good, if you're a Titans fan, to see your team not let dudes get right for 2 weeks in a row against your defense. The longest play of the day for the Cincinnati Bengals was the 17-yarder in the first quarter on 2nd and 1 to Jamar Chase. They had two plays of 17 yards and 2 plays of 13 yards. They did not have a quote-unquote explosive play. So a play of 20 yards or more. First game that the Titans have not given one up in this game. Titans had X plays all over the place. 44 yards from Ryan Tannehill to Chris Moore. Hell of a catch. Mike Keith was selling it hard on the Titans radio broadcast, which I got a kick out of. But a big play by Chris Moore, again, who continues to make plays down the field. Hopkins for 38 yards. Henry, the 29-yard touchdown rush. You had Josh Wiley, a catch and run for 24 yards. You had the Spears fumble recovery for that ended up being a gain of 26. NWI for 22. So that's 6 plays of 20 yards or more for the Tennessee Titans, 0 for the Cincinnati Bengals. There was a lot of impressive things to result out of the day. I thought Christian Fulton played well. Talked to him in the locker room afterwards. He seemed it was a pretty good. He's a really grounded individual, but I think that when he talked about the context that the defensive coaching staff, when we talked to him in the locker room about this, he brought up, defensive coaching staff kind of laid out the X plays and said, hey, look, if you don't keep your eyes in the backfield on this play and miss your assignment, or don't miscommunicate on this particular coverage where you're trying to adjust. When you remove these simple miscues that you're making, this is a good defense. It's just you're getting killed because there's penalties, right? And then there's no room for error. So when you do have these plays where you get beat, and corners are going to get beat, defensive backs are going to get beat, it's the nature of football. But continually, in a variety of different ways is the problem, right? By penalty, by great throw by the quarterback, or by miscue by the defender, right? All three of those things can't happen at once. And today they got right in that area. Absolutely needed to. Took advantage of a Bengals offensive unit that is really, really struggling. Came into the game averaging 15.3. That's only 0.3 more than were the Tennessee Titans. And obviously, holding them well below their points per game total, with a total of 3 points on the field goal from their first drive of the game. Pretty impressive performance. Most improved player, though, today, I'm going to have to, man, that's a tough one. I think I think Fulton is a good nominee. I think Fulton's had some better snaps than people are giving him credit for. I think that Deshaun Watson just, beat a couple of defenders. I thought he beat Roger McCreary in that game. I thought he beat Christian Fulton in that game. And listen, Fulton's had bad plays in there too, and he's got the hamstring injury. He's going to be an easy target because Christian Fulton has been a talking point now for 2 years. But I did like the way that Fulton responded today. I like the way that the secondary, they had a few things that they got caught up in, and certainly they looked like they were going to be in for a day on that first offensive drive where the Bengals got their field goal. But was a really nice performance by the secondary today, was a really nice performance by Christian Fulton. Second place offensive line group. Dillard wasn't great. They still gave up 3 sacks. It's certainly not perfect. It's a below average group as a whole, but they were survivable today. They did enough to win the football game, to their credit. And it seemed like in talking to Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill and the offensive line themselves, or some of them in the locker room afterwards, that they really, they took it to heart how badly they got schooled a week ago by the Cleveland Browns. Jackie Hulbert says they ate up nearly an entire quarter. That third quarter drive to open the third quarter was crazy. 10:22 killed off the clock. I thought it was I thought I had missed a Bengals 3 and out or something. I was like, surely they've had the ball at some point in the third quarter. I'm looking through you hear me going through my NFL script. The NFL hands us a script on a weekly basis, as you well know if you watch the commercials. This is my script for this particular game. So that drive to start the third quarter, they went 15 plays, 65 yards. They did have 3 penalties in the middle of that for a total of 10 minutes and 22 seconds off the clock. And that was the field goal drive that they ended up making because they scored the 3 touchdowns in the second quarter. So those were their final points of the game. This team refuses to score more than 27 points. Still haven't scored 28, dating back to last year. But a really nice, complete performance at every level. The Tannehill interception, like I said, was really bad. But beyond that, they really could not do much wrong today. And it's rare when you can say that about, any team, much less the Tennessee Titans. Per sources, says Mike Fleck, the NFL is rigged. You knew this, of course. You knew that the NFL was rigged when that defensive pass interference was called on Roger McCreary, which I have seen several times on replay, and I am disgusted for you. Rarely do I get as upset about a penalty as you guys do, because for obvious reasons, when a penalty goes against your team and you think it's a bad penalty, you're going to get upset. But for the most part, it doesn't really it doesn't affect me. But when it's so egregious like that, the Roger McCreary thing was disgusting. I know I've used that word a lot lately. Whoa, what a catch by 89. I don't know who Ruckert is. Actually, Ruckert, that sounds familiar. I can't remember where that tight end played. Oh, is that the Ohio State tight end? Is that Jeremy Ruckert? I forgot he was a Jet. He hasn't done much there. Either way, nice catch down the field for the New York Jets as the third quarter of Sunday Night Football has begun, which means that we need to wrap things up here on A to Z Sports Prime Time. A quick, this is a free site. Now, I told Bert I'd leave it to him on the dealer's choice. I assume he went with the touchdown from Derrick Henry to Josh Wiley. It's a great play call. It's a great play design. Bengals called a timeout when they trotted out with this formation because, very obviously, Jeffrey Simmons was on the field for an offensive play, so they wanted to get another look at this thing. But they ultimately brought the same personnel group out, ran the touchdown. It was a really, really impressive play.
Again.
He's open.
Here he is.
Got it.
So I don't know whose video this is courtesy of. It must be Sam's, because I can hear myself doing commentary in the background, which is funny. But that is the touchdown pass from Derrick Henry to Josh Wiley. I wrote about this earlier today at A2Zsports.com, where you can always read all the post-game coverage, all the pre-game coverage, all the post-game coverage, whatever you want to read. It's at A2Zsports.com for Titans and Vols, who also got a big win over the weekend. Derrick Henry has a damn near perfect passer rating. He has completed 7 of his 8 career regular season and postseason passing attempts. 4 of those 7 completions have gone for touchdowns to his teammates. It is one of the things that makes Derrick Henry the ultimate red zone weapon because he's obviously a threat to take the ball himself. When the defense pursues him as the ball carrier and leaves somebody like Josh Wiley alone in the end zone, ooh, touchdown New York Jets. Jets just scored a touchdown. All right, I'm going to get you guys back in time for this game. Been a lot of fun hanging out with you. A reminder that the Primetime Show is presented by the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage. Go to GaryAshton.com. Get the intel edge you need to succeed with the Ashton team. They are the best in the real estate industry. The official real estate agent of the Nashville Predators is GaryAshton.com. Don't sell without the intel. Patricia says, funny how the Titans lost 27-3 last week and won 27-3 today. Yes, the irony was not lost on anybody, I'm certain, much less you guys, who did the punking today after 7 days ago getting quite summarily punked. Have a great rest of your evening. Radio show tomorrow from 10 to 1 on 104.5 The Zone. We'll break all of this stuff down at a much deeper level. Always enjoy spending time with you guys, and we'll do it again tomorrow, either on the radio show or primetime tomorrow night. See ya.